Normally I wouldn't be talking about this one, but it's more the DVD case that's of interest to me that I'd like to discuss. And here we have The Flock. The Flock is a typical Richard Gere flick from the mid to late 2000s, but it's not necessarily the movie I want to talk about, but take a look at this. Blockbuster exclusive. I can't exactly remember the business policies of Blockbuster during the height of its power, but if I can theorize, then I might theorize that Blockbuster would work out certain deals for certain movies to get exclusive DVD rights, exclusive hard copy rights. Right after the film hit theaters, it would come out into hard copy, and Blockbuster might have made a deal to get the hard copy for a few months before it hit store shelves, maybe even for a year before it hit store shelves. And that might be what these types of Blockbuster exclusives are. And here's the interesting part with the actual it's not just the case, it's also the disc. If you take a look at that, you see the Blockbuster exclusive on the actual disc itself. That might mean that it's a little edited. All of the super R-rated stuff could have been edited out. I'm not exactly sure about that, because this is my first time watching this film. I haven't seen a non-Blockbuster exclusive version of this film. But it's the DVD case. It's the DVD that I'd like to look at, because take a look at this. It's got the Blockbuster logo on there. It's got the Blockbuster logo on here. It has the little signs of the old little lock that they used to have on these things, and that was pretty interesting to me. And it's also a very, very sturdy case, far more sturdy than the current DVD discs that come out. Even the artwork paper, let's pull that out and take a look at that. Even the little artwork, this is a thicker piece of paper than the covers that they would use on typical DVDs today. I really appreciate that. They made these to last practically forever if you take good care of them. These cases were more for security purposes because, they want to make it pretty hard to open them up to get the disc out. They don't want you taking the disc while you're in the store, after all. And they won't keep it behind the counter, so they just lock the case instead. And then you take it up to the counter, and then they have a little handy-dandy tool. They just slide it in, unlock the little case, pull the little plastic out so that you can open it up and take a look at the DVD. They also had that for the VHS tapes when they used to do VHS. And they even did Blu-ray for their final years, if I remember correctly. I stopped going to Blockbuster before Blu-ray became a main hit. So I was mainly there for the VHS and DVD era. But I found a couple of these DVDs in used dollar bins here and there, and I wanted to pick them up for nostalgia purposes. It's a good movie on top of being a collector's item physically, because the Blockbuster exclusive DVDs, they're not being made anymore. The Blockbuster, there's only one left in the whole country, to my knowledge. I don't think they're making any more stores. It's just a novelty at this point. And it's not like this DVD is worth more than other copies of The Flock, unless you're just a Blockbuster collector and you want to collect all of the Blockbuster exclusive DVDs that ever released. Then you might say that this is a collector's item to that person, but it's not a collector's item to the typical person. But hey, I might look for another copy of The Flock at some point just to compare the Blockbuster DVD exclusive to a regular copy to see if maybe the Blockbuster exclusive version was censored in a way for public consumption and all that stuff. Normally they would probably do an ID check or something to make sure that the young kids can't get a hold of this. They gotta get a parent to pick this up. So maybe they had that up at the counter, and maybe they didn't edit out this stuff for Blockbuster and video store types of things. So who knows? I wasn't exactly a teenager in the 90s, so I can't didn't have a strong enough memory for their business practices back then. But I went there all the time in the late 90s and early 2000s to pick up PS1 games and some PS2 games to rent and some movies on VHS tape primarily because I didn't have a DVD player until I got a PS2, which was like, 2002, 2003. So I was using primarily VHS for all of the 90s and 2000, 2001. I was a pretty big fan of VHS, but I don't have too many of these. I may have about 4 or 5 Blockbuster exclusives. I don't want to dig the rest of them out. This is just the one that I happened to have recently watched. And the premise to this movie is pretty interesting. It's pretty dark. There is a lot of subject matter that, if you're a Law & Order SVU fan, you might be used to seeing stories like this. Richard Gere and the other character, I think it's Claire Danes here, they play public servants in the sexual offenders office. Like, you have, when somebody gets in trouble for doing any of that no stuff that you shouldn't be doing, you have to register as an offender. And these guys, he primarily keeps track of all this stuff. He acts like a friggin' cop, but he's not a cop. He gives off the impression that he tried to be a cop, but they turned him down, so this was the best alternative he could get. He probably has a personal history with this type of abuse, and that's why he's particularly angry at these types of offenders, and he keeps track of them like they're major criminals, that they should all be locked up permanently, but they get let out on plea bargains or probation and all this stuff. But he keeps a very strict eye on all these people because he knows that one of them may go back into their old habits again, and he wants to make sure that nobody gets hurt by these people that are on his flock, that are part of his registry, that he himself goes out to check in with every couple of months. And as it turns out, he's on his final month before they force him to retire, since he's a workaholic with that stuff, and he gets in trouble because he's a little bit abusive towards these abusers. And this is mainly because he knows these guys are pieces of garbage, and he knows that one of them is going to go into their old ways if he doesn't keep an eye on them. But his boss and his other co-workers are going like, don't worry about all that stuff. That's not going to happen. And then it does happen on his final month at working at the registry office. And so one of his flock ends up kidnapping a teenage girl and starts to do some very dark things, and he and his partner here, she's going to replace him at the end of the month, so he's teaching her everything he knows in that month until that happens. So they've been going out on this recent case. They're not cops, but he's investigating this on his own time, primarily because he believes it's one of his flock that has kidnapped this person. And he believes this person has been kidnapped, even though the cops have labeled it as a runaway. He's going like, nah, that evidence doesn't match up. That evidence is scrapped, is garbage. It's been faked and falsified by this kidnapper. She's kidnapped. She's not a runaway. So he's going after all that stuff, trying to find which one of his flock is responsible for this. And he ends up uncovering a very, very gory kink, a gory sexual kink. He finds a magazine at a certain video hall, adult video place where some extreme kinks are going down on, and he finds a magazine showing dismembered body parts, and there's like a foot fetish to the extreme, if you will. Like the hand is there by itself. There's no arm attached to the hand. There's a foot there by itself. There's no leg attached to that foot. And at first he thinks, it's just some crazy weird fetish. And they get pictures of this stuff at the morgue before they cremate the bodies or something like that. And then you end up learning that no, these are kidnapped people being cut up, and he realizes one of his flock is really demented, and at the end of the film, he does find out who it is. He does find out where they are, and he ends up saving the kidnapped girl, and that is part of his catharsis, because one of the reasons why he's so hell-bent on finding these people is because earlier in his career, one of these guys kidnapped a girl and he couldn't save her. He found her corpse, and it really ate him up inside. So he's ever vigilant, because he knows if he has the power to save someone, if he has the power to stop something, that he's going to do it. It's like he feels like it's his personal responsibility, even though the cops are involved. If the cops don't do it and he's able to do it, and he doesn't do it because they told him not to do it, and somebody gets hurt because of it when he could have stopped it, he's going to feel responsible and guilty for that. So he's really messed up mentally himself because of all this. It's a very, very interesting film. It's a very slow burner. It's not necessarily action-paction type of thing. It's a thriller. If you're into movies like Seven, then you might find The Flock to be a very interesting time.